Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Human Echoes recap for Z Nation Season 3, Episode 11. This one is called Doc's Angels. This is another filler episode, and I haven't loved those this season. However, and to put this in perspective, even my wife, when we were done watching this, said to me, she turned over, she's like, there was no point to this episode except to show that Doc got in contact with Citizen Z. That's it. That's all this episode accomplished. And she was 100% right. This episode could have been boiled down to one scene. And plot-wise, you would not have lost anything. However, for whatever reason, and I don't know that I can clearly enumerate specifically what it was, but I really dug this episode. It starts off with a little introduction reminding us that Citizen Z and Kaya are still up at Camp Northern Light. They're still keeping an eye on things. They're still reaching out, trying to get in contact with Operation Bite Mark, with anybody, who knows what's going on with Murphy or any of the operations there, which you gotta admire them for, because at this point, it's been many months since they've been in contact with any of these people. For all they know, they might be dead, probably are dead. I mean, that's what I would assume if I was up there in Camp Northern Light with no contact for months and months and months. But Citizen Z perseveres. It's the only thing he can do, and he's still there, sending out the broadcast, I guess. I mean, maybe not 24/7. It seems like he would find a way to automate that somehow eventually, but what we see is live. They're tracking things. There's a great moment at the beginning, again, that really has nothing to do with anything, but it was still a beautiful moment in this episode where Kaya sees some Enders tear apart a zombie and then start ripping its guts out and eating them. And she's got popcorn and she's just like munching the popcorn, like, come over here and watch what's going on here. Look at these guys. This is crazy. Which is such a neat, audience surrogate thing for her to do. That's why we're watching this show, is because we like watching zombies do crazy things and people do crazy things with zombies. And so to sort of have that meta influence there was really pretty great. Of course, then we get into the meat of the episode, which is Doc trying to find some way to transmit what has happened to Warren. Not has happened to Warren. Transmit to Warren what has happened with Lucy and the man, so that Addie can have a chance to catch up with them. They've split up and gone their separate ways. This is another Doc-centric episode, and he comes across, by following this radio signal of this woman reading poetry over the air, he comes across this castle. This weird castle that's sort of badly CG'd into the environment of Spokane at first. I mean, I think they were actually on set for part of it, but you see him kind of stumble on and see it across over the hill, and it's not a great. There's some wonky effect shots of trying to composite this castle in to the sort of bleaker environs where Doc is, and then transitioning back and forth isn't great, but so much else about this episode is visually great that I totally give that a pass. And in a sense, it almost works for the benefit of what is happening here, because it doesn't fit, right? He's leaving sort of the stark, bitter, dry land of the desert and the zombies and sort of not being anywhere, to this weird, lush, psychedelic, odd, sexy compound. I mean, it's literally a castle in the sky. To a point, it makes sense that it doesn't really fit in the frame. That when he sees it, it looks sort of like, that doesn't look right, because it doesn't feel right. And he goes to this place, encounters, he's traveling through these really beautiful ivy colored trellises is the word I'm trying to think of right there. And the ivy's crawling over the stones. It's a great, some kind of garden somewhere. It's a location that they found. I don't know where it was. I didn't do any research on that, but it looks like a nice place to sort of hang out and sort of just enjoy the nature side of things. And he comes across again, if you didn't already get that this place was totally sort of outside of the norm of the zombie apocalypse, even sort of the Z Nation zombie apocalypse, he finds bedazzled zombies. These zombies with jewels stuck all over the outside of them. Of course, they're still zombies and they still chase him. And there's a pretty tense moment there where, I mean, you know that he's not going to die because it's the first 5 minutes of the episode. And I mean, I've seen the previews for the episode and know there's more in it that he interacts with other people. So clearly, at least at the beginning, he's not going to die. But it felt like, they put a good amount of tension in there. And he's rescued by these 3 women whose names escape me. But I thought that, the name of the episode, Doc's Angels, right? It sort of conjures up the idea of these women being all sexy in the same way. Not exactly the same way, but sort of stereotypically, beautiful and, lingerie stuff. I was took off guard a little bit when we first meet these women because they're not like that. You have the one sort of really strikingly, classically beautiful woman, and then you have the nerdy girl, and then you have the sort of shaved head woman with the tattoos all over, and that wasn't really what I was expecting. I thought, this is not, I thought they would go for sort of more of the lowest common denominator. Go, Doc, you're so... I mean, they do go there, but they want a more interesting and complicated route to get there. These women take Doc in. He mentions to them that he needs a radio. So they say, oh, we have a radio. And he's, tries to contact Citizen Z. Of course, the camera lets us, the audience, know that things are wonky right off the bat because it zooms in on the antenna wires being cut and he's not able to transmit. I'm not 100% sure why they had a radio hooked up with the antenna wires cut ahead of time, but they were transmitting beforehand because he was picking up their transmission. Did they know he was going to want the antenna and they cut it ahead of time? Or maybe I missed like a bit where they were back there with scissors or something. I didn't quite pick up on that, but you get the idea that these people aren't, they're telling him that the radio works and the radio doesn't work at that moment. So they're not exactly honest with him. It shouldn't have been real difficult for him to figure out that something was wrong. I mean, Doc has been living in the apocalypse for 5 or 6 years now at this point. These situations, even with like nice people, normal seeming people, almost never turn out to be good. It's never like, oh, yeah, there are some good people. I mean, we have seen some decent people in the apocalypse, for better and worse. Sometimes they get mowed down and that's not great. But when you come across somebody crazy like this, it should be a red flag. On the other hand, though, I think that it is just so Doc that he says, all right, 3 relatively hot women in their own way inviting me into their sort of nice, lush compound where they've bedazzled zombies. I'll roll with this. I'll roll with that, yeah. Whatever, man. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. He doesn't let his guard down completely. He's not entirely an idiot, but the thing about Doc is he's up for whatever. He's up for whatever is going to happen. And this scenario feels right for him. It feels, even though it's kind of like arguably it's not the smartest move in the world, it feels very in character for him. It feels like something that Doc would do. And I mentioned earlier the sort of more subtle approach that they take to these women and how their sexuality is expressed. And I thought that it was interesting. You had the one sort of classically beautiful, sort of half exotic but still light-skinned girl that they had. Then you have the nerdy librarian type that's like all intellectual and still kind of soft-spoken, but really like can tickle the sort of brainy side of the the sexuality. And then you have the shaved head with the tattoos and the dominant, if that's what you're into, boy, she's there for you. And these three women kind of having this like a triangle of sexuality where they're coming at you from all sides. Whatever you're into, they've got some aspect of it and every aspect of it. And Doc's into all of it. Doc is really just down with whoever and whatever, and he feels like he stumbled into legit paradise. They're serving up some relatively nice spread, although I don't know about y'all, but when I saw that stew, I was like, Doc, no. Doc, no. They're serving you stew, man. They said it's vegan stew. Do you think they found tofu in the apocalypse? Doc, no. There are no vegetables in that stew, Doc. It's probably people. It's probably people pieces. It was people pieces, you guys. I knew it. I knew it was going to be people pieces when they served it to him. But again, it's Doc, and he's sort of distracted by all the sexy going on. So we'll cut him some slack. But it was pretty obvious that there was some stuff going on. And of course, there's the scrapbook thing, which is, again, one of those things that if you're watching, I think Doc is distracted. Maybe that's what I would put it up to. Although he does kind of do a double take a couple times when he's shown the scrapbook. When the nerdy lady shows him the scrapbook, he's like, huh? And it's clear these people have been crazy since before the apocalypse. She's talking about her husband getting a Brazilian necktie, which they actually had a picture of that. Why? I mean, I know it's a zombie show and there's gore, but I prefer the fake type, not the actual. Like, maybe it was just photoshopped, I'm saying, but that, like, tongue pulled down through the hole in the throat, not maybe my favorite thing to see. She has a scrapbook of all these gruesome things of her niece, like, with some message written in clearly what is blood in somebody's finger. But again, Doc gets distracted by the sexy, goes to bed with these women. They all come into his room, right? They all have their different gifts. There's the I forget what the nerdy librarian gave him. The sort of sexy lingerie lady has the book of poetry. Then the bald lady comes in and she's got the sword. Again, the sort of the dominance, but she gives it to him. She's like, all right, here you go. You can protect yourself. Which, by the way, of the complaints that I have about this episode, not getting to use a sword was a massive tease. Like, what? You throw a sword in. We need to have some sword kills in this show. We may have had some before. I can't remember. We could have some more, though. Let's have some more sword kills. And you had a sword right there. It was in the episode. You showed it to us. Like, Chekhov's gun did not go off, you guys. That's a no-no. You put the gun on the mantelpiece, it needs to go off. But maybe that's subverting expectations, and that's fine. I won't quibble with that too much. And again, I like the episode. And I think what worked for me the most about this was just the way it all really felt of a piece. There was no... The storyline was very focused on this one bizarre encounter, and it almost... I think it benefited from not having to go off into, oh, we have to service the plot. Also, I like the plot that we're going with. I mean, I do want to see more of Murphy and all that stuff. So I don't want to get away from the plot, but I think sometimes these diversion episodes can be sort of muddled by the fact that, oh, and we feel like we need to move the plot forward. Specifically, the Doc flew over the cuckoo's nest episode, I think Doc just being in an insane asylum might have been better from a story perspective than having 10K in the mix. 10K in the mix, again, added extra drama, but it felt like there was almost too much to do in that episode. This episode has very little to do, and so it kind of has room to breathe. It takes its time, and it really builds up a cool tone that's unique to this episode. It feels very psychedelic and very lush, and uses colors that we don't normally see in Z Nation. Of course, Doc does sleep with the women, because even though, and you see like his brain working like, this is not right, but it's been a while and it's the apocalypse, so I guess if I gotta die, there's like worse ways to do it. Wakes up, of course, they're all in bed around him, left to our imaginations, as it should be. Everything's better in my imagination anyway. Kind of can't find his clothes, which was interesting. Looking back on it makes me wonder, was there a point when one of them got up, hid his clothes, and then went back to sleep naked on the bed? Or how did that work? I don't know. It's not real important. He ends up in a frilly housecoat and like some boxers that aren't quite his size and some big cowboy boots. And he's stumbling around the house, the big castle mansion thing that they have going on there. Finds his way down into the basement where there are the other previous male guests that these women have entertained. Still alive, unfortunately. One of them has had some of his skin taken off. Another one has got like his hair stuck in a loom, Samson style. Kind of an interesting allusion there. And the third one has weed growing out of his head, out of his brain. I don't think that's possible, you guys. Relatively sure that's not possible. But man, was it cool looking. It was a cool idea. I was totally on board for that. And, he eventually sort of manages to set some of them free. Although speaking of plot threads that they didn't have time for, that really didn't go anywhere. He ends up getting into a confrontation with the women after he sort of sees all that they're doing, all that they're capable of. He realizes that all the lampshades are made out of human skin. He realizes that he finds the pieces of the hand that went into the stew that he ate. And then he's confronted by the three women, and they're in those masks that we saw in the preview. And this is another one of those instances where I almost would rather not have seen ahead of time. But even having seen ahead of time what was going to happen and what those masks look like, those are some freaky looking masks. The skin masks with the buckles and like the zipper on the front that they're all wearing, they just worked. I'm sure that they're kind of referencing or ripping off something else, some other kind of mask that's been in horror before. I think Leatherface kind of has that, although his sort of covers his own whole head. So like the straps add in a little bit of a different angle, but that idea of a fake face being strapped onto your real face, it just looked great. And it made these women so much more menacing. Doc tries to get away, tries to, the guys that he's let loose out of the basement come in and attack. They don't apparently make it. He lets the zombies in. They're bedazzled little cat zombies that they've kept trained and sort of sitting around, outside the castle. He lets them in. Again, apparently that doesn't work, but it does distract them long enough for Doc to get in and do the one thing that he has to do this episode for the plot, which is contact Citizen Z and let him know that the man has Lucy and they're headed for Murphy. And then, he climbs the tower, the zombies all attack, and the women drink tea as he escapes, as he snaps the guy wire to the radio tower and topples over the wall to safety. Again, in a little bit of a dodgy special effect. Just a tad, not quite there. But to a certain extent, as I mentioned, the the difference there, the jarring difference is almost working towards the tone of what's happening, of him being in almost a separate world here. And the only thing that I really took issue with is sort of thematically, I wasn't 100% cool with the idea that we're presenting these women like they're sort of the embodiment of all sexuality and they're evil. Seems like, I mean, I get that it's the apocalypse and sort of there's a lot of evil things and a lot of evil people from all different angles, but it felt like that was maybe a little bit misplaced in the theme department. Not sure that I would have gone with that exactly, or I would have put it a different way, maybe made them more victims or something. But that's just a minor quibble, and some people would argue that it's, too politically correct to even talk about that stuff anyway. It didn't bother me so much, but it was something that I thought about. I was like, I don't know that I would like the message of this episode so much as I enjoyed the tone. And Doc gets away. Obviously, I don't think they're gonna kill anybody in any one of these sort of side fun episodes. Riding off into the sunset with his bicycle, still in his pink frilly robe and the cowboy boots, and I don't know. I just had a lot of fun with this one, you guys. I thought that it was really. It was the side quest episode that I've been wanting to see. I've been wanting to love these. They've had this Thanksgiving marathon on, and I didn't watch the whole thing because, I have family and I had stuff to do. But there was a couple times over the weekend where I was putting it on, just sort of watching in the background, walk away, come back, because I've seen them all. It's not like I'm going to miss a plot point. But going back to season 1, there was some really strong stuff in season 1. And although I think that season 3 has been an improvement over season 2, I still look back and see season 1 as maybe the best of Z Nation so far. There's some, granted, some of the drama stuff that we've gotten in the just how far these characters have come. Looking at Murphy, looking at Warren, and what they were and how much they've changed. Doc hasn't really changed that much. I think it's neat that we have a sort of relatively stable character that's not going through big shifts in his change, although he does have a sort of burgeoning relationship with 10K, which I was glad that he brought that up and sort of mentioned that, hey, 10K's like a son to me, and last he's seen him, he didn't know what was going to happen to him. He sort of split up, and 10K was a blend and didn't want to tell Warren, and Doc doesn't know what's happened to 10K. He doesn't know that he's been brainwashed, and it's good to have that in mind, that sort of is a grounding influence for Doc. But I'm glad to see the series hitting these notes again and having an episode that, not perfect. I don't know if there's any perfect episode of Z Nation except for Die Zombie Die Again. Sorry guys, I love that episode. I'm not sorry, but I know some of y'all hate that episode. My favorite episode of the series. It was really solid, and I'm really looking forward to, in the preview we saw next week, we're getting into big plot moments again. Warren versus Murphy. I forgot his name for a second there. And all of the Red Hand kind of along with her. We've got Army versus Army. We're gonna maybe see sort of an echo of what we saw in the season opening movie, where we have kind of big scale action, and that's gonna be cool. And here it's actually gonna make sense when zombies fight against armies, because unlike when the man had the Kraken zombie think, well, why are the zombies running away from a chain? They shouldn't fear stuff, but we've established that Z Nation zombies kind of do that anyway. They had them getting zapped and they ran away, even though that shouldn't affect them. Yeah, we'll cut them some slack. We'll cut them some slack there, but still, this could be epic. It could suck too. If I watch next week's episode and I hate it, then I'll tell y'all. I'll come on here at this episode and be like, guys, man, what a letdown. But as of today, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know how many more episodes we have. Are we coming up on the season finale? I don't know. What I do know is that I want to see more of this show. I want to see this story continue. If you're not tweeting at Sci-Fi with hashtag RenewZNation, please be doing that. Sci-Fi, if you're listening, hashtag RenewZNation. We want more. We like this show. Hopefully you're not spending a boatload on it, and hopefully it's getting you back what you invested in commercials. Okay? Right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be, we don't want you to spend the bank on it, okay? It doesn't have to be The Walking Dead. We don't have to have the greatest special effects. We've stuck with it for 3 seasons. There's been some dodgy, I mean, granted, like I said, season 1, there was some dodgy special effects in season 1. Best season of the show. It's not about that. It's about the spirit of fun and the incredible moving story that's happening. I don't mean like moving emotionally, although that's happening too, but like where they're letting these characters go, how far they're letting them develop, how, I mean, unrecognizable Murphy is from season 1, from the sniveling coward. I mean, he's very still egotistical, like he's still the same character, but so changed. And I want to see that continue. I want to see that go forward. I really hope that Z Nation continues, and I'm looking forward to the next episode. I hope you guys are too. Until next time, I'm Albert. For the Z Nation recap, like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We'll continue covering these as long as they keep making them. And I'll see you next week.